Now the 3 don'ts, and this is where I get back to all these new biologics that they came up with. The chance that you come up with something successful in whatever you do is 10%. There's 90% failure. From the 90% you learn a hell of a lot. At the age of 30, men run into a concrete wall. Women don't do that. They know that they shouldn't walk into a concrete wall. But men do that. So they're going to learn from that first experience. Who they were at the age of 25 is completely different from who they are at the age of 35. For men, it's a big change. For women, it's much more gradual. But new on new. So if you've got a new concept of polymers, don't put a new drug into it. Because then your chances of success have become, who's been paying attention? 10% chance that you're right, or that you get it right. Now if you have 2 new things, what's the chance of getting it right? Who? Louder. Still 10%. You guys can debate with, but in my world it's 1% or less. Yeah, you're going to, if you have new on new, you have 2 things which are out of control for 90%. And your chances are, so take it gradual. You can have discriminative technology or you can have a revolution, but it started somewhere from a corner where you were comfortable. Don't do everything new. Now, the other big don't is recruit only the brightest. So here you are, the crème de la crème of Portugal, the MIT, and you are among the brightest. But if I put you together in a team, you're probably going to fight or you're going to talk a lot. But you need people who think, people who do, people who give, people who accept. That makes a team. Until that time, you're a bunch of individuals sitting in a group. So not only the brightest, you need to, when you start to work with each other, recruit people who complement each other. And survive on grants. That's about the worst thing you can do. If you don't have traction with customers, if you don't have traction with patients, don't start a company. So if you get a grant, it's a good opportunity, but if you don't know why you're going to do this for the coming 10 years and waste a lot of energy and a lot of frustration. Okay, now maybe you can remember Material. That's a band from the 80s, 90s, with a very famous bass player. It was a big inspiration for me. I love to play bass. And he actually brought in an old junkie from the 50s, 60s, William Burroughs, who's also a famous poet. And he died by now, and he always said, well, final word of advice for young people. There it goes. Women know best. If I just look at the posters, most of them are women. If you go back to the startup companies, it's always men who are the CEO. Whoa, I'm a CEO. They need good women around, and by now you actually see a lot of women picking up that challenge. Do it. There's no reason why you shouldn't. Talk to patients if you're in healthcare. Huh? If you're in ICT, talk to customers, talk to the people, the end users. What do they want? What is their unmet need? A professor will give you a totally different story. An orthopedic surgeon is thinking that he wants to be principal investigator of a clinical trial. Oh yeah, sure, this is a and he may be talking bullshit. Talk to the patients. They are the ones who know. Or the parents of children, if the children are the patients. They know what they need. And the other one, it only gets better. Meaning that you're going to hit the bottom somewhere. And from there on, all you can do is climb. With my Chinese company, we were technically bankrupt, standing with our back against the wall, where there was only one direction, right? Forward. You can only go from the wall. It only gets better. Thank you.
Now I let Rui Oliveira explain a little bit of his experience and journey.
Thank you. Can you hear me well? Is that okay? Okay. So first of all, thank you for the invitation. Let me say that I'm really pleased to be here. As you know, I am a faculty professor, and I know most of you. The topics of this meeting, they are of my daily concern. You can be sure of that. So I'm going to speak in quality as a university professor. And of course, I was asked as my buddies here to speak about my previous experience. This is what I'm going to do, but I will pick up the points of my path or of my previous experience that I think are interesting or more relevant for you at this point. I was also before a PhD student, and many of the concerns that you are having today I also had in the past. So I will begin there. I finished my PhD in '98. I finished my PhD in Germany. By that time, in Germany, and Germany has a very different situation in relation to the other countries in Europe, all the research in the group was mostly, I would say, more than 90% funded by private companies. So I spent my PhD basically doing projects with the pharmaceutical companies in Germany and also basically around the world, also in the Netherlands. I had Gis Procades from Netherlands that supported my PhD. So my boss used to say, your PhD you do in your spare time. And I was working like mad for all those companies. Well, eventually I finished my PhD and I came back to Portugal. I came to Porto. And as you imagine, this was in '98, the situation was really very different. It was really very different. So I had finished my PhD and I thought, okay, I have a lot of experience. I have a lot of experience in applied research. I have a know-how that could be very interesting for Portuguese companies. I had a PhD even with summa cum laude from Germany. I thought, okay, I'm going to get a job very easily. And I started to send my CV to basically all companies in Portugal. And I will ask you, please, to make a guess how many answers I did get from this. Zero answers. So this was just that you probably make also a comparison to the actual situation. I do think that nowadays is better. The companies, they start to answer. The number of jobs is also probably better than now. In very deep contrast, I have to say, I never applied to a German company operating in Germany, and I did have German companies chasing me all the time. One of them even came to Portugal to make an interview to try to convince me to go back to Germany. What was I was almost about to do when I found a position here at Nova. This was then in 2001, and then I started an academic career at Nova. I was, at the beginning, more oriented for industry, but this was the opportunity available, and then I started here then in Portugal, an academic career. Of course, as you can imagine, this technological experience that I had in Germany shaped a lot my idea of how I could help the country to go forward. So I tried to mimic the model that I had in Germany at the faculty. This means that I started to go talk to the Portuguese industry, go talk to the European industry, American industry in conferences, and try to convince them to do research projects with the group and bring money and do interesting science. As you can imagine, this is not very easy to do from Portugal, but it is possible, and there is a lot of success stories currently in the country. I have to say that after a few years, we managed in the group to have the very first big contract with an American company to do a research project with the group. And then 1 year after, we had a second contract with the same company. And also, this was in 2007. And also for the first time, and I consider this a landmark, we had the first big contract with a Portuguese company that funded completely first 1 year project, and then it continued for 2 more years, and they paid all the research the patents that came out from that research, and then in the end it originated a spin-off from the company. This was NRC. They spend a lot of money by their own on our group, and I acknowledge that. I'm very thankful for that. And I'm proud of this company, I have to say. Let me tell you that this path, at this time I was very confident on the evolution of the country. So there were already many startups starting to appear. The good Portuguese companies, they were evolving and they were already showing some interest in academia, and the interaction started to work much better. Okay, you know that now in 2013 the situation is changing again, but for now let's forget that. Even so, I have to say that in the field of life sciences, my feeling and my conclusion, and I could be wrong, but the point that I really felt that was the bottleneck was that the number of companies is too low in Portugal. The number of companies that do, big companies, industrial companies that do fermentation, for instance, is really small. Okay, and so then at certain point I really reached this conclusion that the best way for me to proceed to bring forward my research group to help the country is to create new companies. That was it. At a certain point, this was really, I started to organize my research group in order to do that. So right now, we are 10 people, more or less 10 people, PhDs, and a few more postdocs. Our discussions is how to do good research and how to create a startup. And this goes basically to all the people that is involved in the group. So I'm going to start with HybPAT, because Moritz is there and Christiana is there. So what is the story of HybPAT? Well, the story of HybPAT is basically this. We in the group have basically 10% of the world publications in the topic of hybrid modeling. So why not starting a company? And this is basically this. So we have so much know-how in hybrid modeling, why not finding a market application of hybrid modeling and starting a company? Okay, so this is the story of HybPAT. Moritz has a poster outside. He can tell you better what is the strategy to go to market. We have MediaOmics. MediaOmics is a very special project, I have to say, because MediaOmics is a project where I really felt that we have developed in terms of science something that is disruptive, something that is really very different from what is available. So we have started this project basically 2 years ago, and we have already a long story. We have been at the MIT Portugal program. We won the venture competition in 2011. We have been also at CoITech, also at the Act to Enhance program. And let me tell you, really difficult to get money, quality money inside the company. So we are still also negotiating with Portugal Ventures to have money in the company and to go forward. Nevertheless, the prospects are no more, no less than to create 4 jobs this year. 4 jobs for the people that are currently working at the group. GoGreen Solutions. GoGreen Solutions is another company that was formed in 2007. This company was basically created acknowledging that in the research group there is world-class research in fermentation and world-class research in membrane technology. Why not bringing these two together and start an engineering company? This is what we do at GoGreen Solutions. So basically, this was what I wanted to bring here today. It was this previous experience, and I believe what I want you to understand from an older person is the dynamics that have been occurring in the last years, which I believe is very, very pertinent for the topics of this meeting. Thank you so much. I think I've finished.
Thank you. We'll end this understanding of our guests. I will make a simple question to all of you. That this was basically what motivates you to not leave science, but stop doing only science and entering the market with your technology. What was your motivation at all? We can start with Mike. So.
Oh, money. No. No, I think when I started Branching Tree, before I started Branching Tree, I was working with DSM and having a very nice salary. And actually, I had an expat salary and expat conditions living in the Netherlands because my wife and I didn't want to go back to the Netherlands. So we negotiated a total expat package. And having a comfortable life, but not the freedom. And if anything, that is my biggest driver, to go where I want to go. And when I ran into this technology, I ran into a very old man at the age of, well, he wasn't very old, but he was 75. And he was talking about this technology with a sparkle in his eyes, which was just, it was contagious. I was blown away within 5 minutes. I really wanted to be part of his world, these polymers. You know, I'm not a polymer person. And I gave up my job at DSM because at DSM, the board, so I was reporting to the board, you know, you can't go much higher. They said, well, Mike, you know, first do some acquisitions and buy some coating technology and get some positive cash flow. And once you've done that, then we can do that technology. No, I want it now. You know, it's like a child almost. But it was my freedom that I was negotiating about. And then my wife said to me, look, are you negotiating about your freedom? And no, we're not negotiating. So the next day I just said to DSM, you know, I'm going to do that. You can join me, but I am going to do that. And that's basically the only thing that happened. I wanted to do that technology. I wanted to do that thing. And basically I was buying my freedom. And I paid dearly for it, and I'm very blessed with a very patient wife. But it was just doing my thing. But I need a lot of good people around me to do that thing. That's for sure. But if I'm ever going to sell the company, yes, I'll be filthy rich, or I'm broke, one of the two. There's nothing in between. And until that time, I'm blessed with the interaction of very knowledgeable people, the professors, the clinicians, the technicians that I work with. They are wonderful people. I love the science, and I'm a sucker for startups.
You explained how you entered academia with the focus in the industry. So how do you manage to convince your colleagues to start creating projects outside academia?
You mean my colleagues at
like the faculty
members?
Yes, and students. How do you?
Interesting.
You know, it's this is. I'm not sure if I can give a straight answer to that. I know that many of my colleagues, they are oriented to do research, most of them, and they are not really open to this interaction. I have to acknowledge that this is the reality. An increasing number is, however, paying more attention to the interaction with the industry, and of course, at the faculty level, at the direction level, this interest is growing very fast. So we now have, for instance, as in most of the important universities in Portugal, we have a knowledge transfer office, and we have people working just for that. And obviously now the faculty they acknowledge the importance of that, and they are promoting very much that. So because when there are entrepreneurship programs and conferences or meetings at the faculty, I'm often invited to speak about those topics. I notice that my colleagues, they are aware of that, and they find it increasingly important. If I'm able to convince them, I'm not sure. I don't think this is very easy to do.
But it's their problem.
Yes.
You're on your way.
In your students, you are seeing that it's easier to motivate them to join a more risky job.
I think
looking
that
for a startup.
I think that entrepreneurship needs first to be taught, really. So people, they need to understand the implications, what they can win, what they can lose. This is the first thing. If you understand the message, then it is clear the pros and cons, and I think this is the first step. Naturally, there are people that they will be willing to do that, and many people will not be willing to do that. But this is the nature of people, and that basically probably you can't change.
Nuno, you said that you didn't know anything about business when you started with BioMode. So what motivated you to?
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't have a great story behind it. First thing I want you to understand is that things have evolved very much in the last 10 years in Portugal, particularly in the bio area. So 10 years ago, I think Rui will agree with me, there was nothing related with entrepreneurship. At least in my course, I had nothing about it. So I really didn't know what it was about. Now everyone talks about entrepreneurship, and it's something that most people are willing at least to try. So when I finished my PhD in 2005, there were basically two groups in the world working with PNA fish, which is what I do now. And the other group actually started a company. And I had some interactions with the other group, and I basically have to say I'm a bit of a copycat. I mean, they have this, they can create a company, and it's a bit like PCR. I mean, you can easily share the market of the microbial detection in two companies, because if they design a probe for a microorganism, I can easily design a probe for another microorganism. And because there were only two groups, for me it looked like obvious at the time to do it. But the original idea was actually from the other group. I just thought that, well, we are as good as them, so we might as well try. And they are actually already making money, a lot of money apparently. We hope to be next. But this is to say that you can reach to that conclusion in very different ways. So now you are active, you're actively looking for it. I actually came to it by accident. It's not a great story to tell, but it's the truth. So in the end, I guess the only, I was lucky to have a good technology transfer office already at University of Minho at the time. They actually told me that it was possible. It was in the beginning. If it was about 2-3 years before, I don't think I would be able to do it, because I would have no support at all. And then I was surrounded by very good people that actually believed in me, and then people started to join me, and things started to go a little bit better, and we got funding, and from then on, once you start it and if things go more or less well, you don't really go back, you just continue.
So, since you have in the audience João Pinto Ferreira, that is working in creating this entrepreneurship knowledge and motivation in academia, I would like to hear experience about the role of the universities in foster the motivation of innovation in scientific backgrounds.
So I'll start by apologizing, because after speaking I will be leaving. So because I have to get the train back. In 2004 we started our master program in Innovation, Technology, Entrepreneurship. And the model that we have is basically the following. We have teams, multidisciplinary teams in our master program, people that come from biology, from architecture, whatever, management, engineering, it doesn't matter. They all go through the same process. And one of the things that we try to do during project courses that we have is to put these teams in the first course, put these teams in touch with research groups at university. So either through personal tastes, say I want to work in such area, I try to get in touch with some colleague, sometimes it's not arts, Other times it's quite hard. But anyway, so we try to put them in touch with those colleagues and see if they can work together. They don't need to have any patent. They don't need to have any formal intellectual property defined. As long as they want to work together, that may make sense. Because one of the first companies that came out of our program, it's called Tomorrow Options. And it was a device for that was developed in partnership, actually during a graduation project. And that device had the objective of helping handicapped people that they lost their lower limbs to help them use the artificial limbs and to walk better and so on. So they developed some device, including accelerometers, pressures, measurements in the plants, in feed plant. And as we took this from this colleague, it was wonderful to see the whole thing happening, because the team we had in our master program basically took that, and as you said before, they won't talk to the customers, to the clients, to the patients, and to the people that would be, in this case, prescribing the technology. And they suddenly realized that there was a huge problem to be solved. That was the diabetic foot. And so this company started with the amputees, okay, searching the market for how can we apply this for amputees, and ended up with a product that is being launched in, actually the entry market was UK, for the academic, for the diabetic foot. And then in the meantime, they are also selling this at for FC Porto to tune the sport shoes so that they can run better and more efficiently. This is already integrated with camera, so it's really fun. Of course, managing the intellectual property was mad, so it took at least 1 year, maybe a little bit more. I lived that, very much, because it was the first company coming out of the master program. So our experience, what I've been trying to do is say, we have researchers that usually want to do research, and you have people that want to do business. For them, selling something for the diabetic foot or selling something for something else, as long as it sells and they have the joy and fun of making business. For some people, that's more than enough. They really love it. And so if we mix those two things, it's wonderful. Of course, this is not easy, and the experience I have with researchers, as you were saying, about it's really difficult, because some of them receive our students very eagerly, okay, very happy. We have to explain them how it works. But then as time goes by,